Hello and welcome to ASP Changes for Commissions webinar. All lines are on mute at this time and we'll leave them on mute throughout the duration of this webinar. This webinar is being recorded, and if you do not wish to be recorded, you can disconnect at any time. The recording and the slides will be available on the Knowledge Network. Additionally, this webinar will take place again on December 4th, 2018 at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You may use the chat box to answer questions or to ask questions at any time. We may wait for an opportune time to answer them, so please be patient if your question is not answered right away. If you have any technical difficulties, please let us know via the chat box as well. If you do that, our webinar facilitator will be able to assist you. Please look for the blinking yellow box in the bottom of the left screen and next to the tab that says Everyone. That will be the facilitator reaching out to you to assist. While you can connect to the conference audio in several different ways, we generally find that you will have the best experience if you let the system call you. Again, let us know in the chat if you need assistance doing that. And at any point the visual freezes, please exit the meeting and re-enter it. This usually addresses the issue. I would now like to turn it over to Chester Spellman, Director of AmeriCorps State and National.
Thank you, Sumika. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today's call. As you know, we have 3 calls scheduled for today to discuss various CHC policy updates and the launch of our national vendor. So we're very excited about these calls and we appreciate you participating. I'd like to mention that the calls today are commission-only calls. In fact, the first calls that the agency is conducting on our new vendor and CHC policies with the field is with you all as our commission partners. One of the reasons that we're scheduling these calls with you all first is just due to our strong partnership with commissions and the critical role that you play as grant makers with AmeriCorps State and National. So this is really a time to make sure that you completely understand these policies so that you can ensure that your subgrantees are in compliance. So the first call today is focused on ASPs, alternative search procedures, and for the next few minutes we'll have a presentation from our partners in OCRO, and then at the end of the call there will be time for Q&A. So at this time it's my pleasure to introduce Lori Giblin, our Chief Risk Officer. Lori.
Chester, and thank you all for participating in this training and the upcoming training that we will be hosting on both the use of this vendor and the employment of new policies regarding the use of the vendor. We know that how we're approaching CHC with the use of TrueScreen and the policies that you'll be hearing from us over the next few hours and coming days represent great change for the agency as well as for everyone employing the CHC process. I understand that great change also comes with it, many questions, some concerns, and the need for a lot of information. I want you to know that we are committed to answering your questions today, to answering your questions tomorrow, any time that you have these questions. We are hoping that the trainings that we are providing are fulsome and that you'll get the information that you need from them, but we will also be providing you with our contact information so that you can share with us any ways that we can both improve our communication, we can enhance the policy and the rollout of the information to you, to your grantees. But this is the beginning of a sea change for the organization, and we want you to know that we are open and here for you to help make this as smooth and as seamless as possible. We hope to get this information out to you in our contact information at the end of this session, so please feel free that you can reach out to me, Lori Giblin, or to Liz Jung. You'll be hearing from her very momentarily, and we will ensure that either someone from our office, the Office of the Chief Risk Officer, or TrueScreen gets back to you as quickly as possible with any information you may need to use TrueScreen or to employ these policies. So with that, I want to turn it over to Liz Jung, and thank you again for participating in today's session.
Thanks, Lori. Thanks, Chester. Hey guys, it's Liz Jung with the Office of the Chief Risk Officer. So thank you for joining us today. This is our first training in a series of trainings that I'll be doing today and for the next few weeks. And this will also be recorded just like Sumika said. So if you missed something, it'll be recorded and posted for you, or you can join us on another session.
So this first one we're going to talk to you about today is just going to be about alternative search procedures. So last week you received an email from the CEO talking about some changes that are coming up in the NSCHC world and talking about a strategy that we are going to be implementing going forward. And then it was followed up by a message from Chester talking a little bit more about the details and the grant augmentation information. Before we get started on the ASPs, I just want to talk a little bit more about that strategy that was in Barbara's email. So it has a couple different cornerstones. So the first part of the strategy is about funding for you guys to give you money to get checks done through TrueScreen and FieldPrint. They are our new vendors. If you aren't aware, FieldPrint is an FBI channeler that CNCS contracted with a couple years ago to get FBI checks from. And TrueScreen is our new vendor who's been on board only for a couple months. We did a soft launch with them. They are now open to the public for you guys' use, and they will be doing NSOPW and state checks. In addition to providing this funding for you guys to get checks through our vendors, we are going to provide an exemption period. The exemption period is going to take place, it starts on the 15th of November and it's going to go till the end of March of 2019. We're going to have another training on that actually after this call. But basically, we're going to provide an opportunity for people to conduct rechecks for any noncompliance that may be in your portfolio so that moving forward, we know that you have compliant checks and that you've gotten them through TrueScreen and FieldPrint. A couple other cornerstones of this new strategy is that we are going to be phasing out most of our currently approved alternative search procedures, our ASPs. That's what this training is going to be about today. And then going forward, probably sometime in 2019, CNCS is going to implement a different enforcement guide, different enforcement policy and disallowance guide. That new disallowance guide is, actually that new disallowance policy is going to include manual hold for non-compliant NSCHC and will also be a cost-based disallowance policy. So that what the current mitigation matrix that you see now with the enforcement guide will no longer exist, and we have this new process in place. There will be trainings for you in the future before we implement this. So the reason behind this new strategy is really focus on the three goals that you probably have seen before, but our goals remain the same with NSCHC. We want to eliminate barriers to noncompliance. We're doing this by bringing 2 new players into the mix for you that we didn't have for you before. We really believe that TrueScreen and FieldPrint are going to be providing you compliant checks that will help you through this, through the battle of NSCHC. And we hope that with these vendors and with these new policies coming in place, that it's going to reduce noncompliance and also minimize the monitoring burden. This strategy communicates a fundamental change in how you do NSCHC. And it is our hope here at CNCS that these changes are good and they are going to help you. We don't want NSCHC to be this beast that we've been battling with for the past few years. You don't want me to be training you on this for years to come. And so we really hope that by providing the vendor, providing these different policies, it is going to help clean up and fix the NSCHC problem that we have been battling with for, NSCHC first became a thing for CNCS about 11 years ago in 2007 when it became part of our law. So we have been under the yoke of NSCHC for almost 11 years. We hope moving forward we are providing you guys with the tools and the resources to not make this a thing anymore. All right. So let's talk about alternative search procedures, ASPs. So for those that don't know what an ASP is, basically for the past couple of years, CNCS has approved of individual requests from grantees who ask for an alternative search procedure to the current NSCHC guidelines or an exemption for some case. And then also in the past few years as well, we've put out a couple of pre-approved alternative search procedures. There are about 6 of them that exist right now that allow grantees to use an alternative search procedure without applying or requesting that approval from CNCS. So all of those ASP and exemption approvals that grantees submitted on an individual basis are going to be expiring at the end of 2019. So you're going to have a little bit more than a year to kind of wrap your brain around that and get ready for 2020. Same thing with pre-approved ASPs. There are a bunch of pre-approved ASPs that will be expiring at the end of 2019. And so you guys as commission staff, it's going to be important to communicate that to your subs and also walk them through that process. Let them know this is happening, that there are resources out there and tools that they can use if they can no longer use these ASPs, such as TrueScreen and FieldPrint. Also help them make sure that this is in their policies and procedures going forward starting on January 1st, 2020. So let's talk about the expiring pre-approved ASPs. The first one is ceasing accompaniment. So this pre-approved ASP discusses when you can cease accompaniment. So basically we say if you have both your state checks or your fingerprint FBI check back and you've reviewed those results, you've cleared the individual for service, then you can stop accompaniment when you have one of those checks back. This is going to expire at the end of 2019. So what we are saying is that you have to have back all your state checks and all your FBI checks before the individual can cease accompaniment. We hope with the use of TrueScreen and FieldPrint, this won't be much of a burden anymore for you because FieldPrint, we know those FBI checks come back within 48 hours or 2 business days. And for TrueScreen, those state checks are going to take 1 to 5 days approximately depending on what state you're getting that check from. So you've got a couple different options. You can just wait until the individual has all the results back before letting them start, or you can go forward with accompaniment, but hopefully you will not be doing it for more than about a week. The other pre-approved ASP that's going to expire is about maintaining clearance letters in lieu of an actual NSCHC result. So this happens when you're partnering with another organization and they do some type of the check for you. So they could be doing the state check for you, they can be doing the FBI check for you, they could be doing both for you. And they do not allow you to review the results. So right now you are allowed to do that, your subs are allowed to do that. And instead of having to go through the process themselves again or having results or trying to get access to the results, they just need to have a clearance letter and then there are some requirements on what type of documentation that you need to have. This is also going to expire at the end of 2019. What options that exist for you with this expiration is that you can go directly to FieldPrint and you can go directly to TrueScreen to get those results back. With both of those services, they're going to give you an adjudication recommendation. FieldPrint, the FBI check is not going to give you the rap sheet. They're legally not allowed to give you the rap sheet, so they will give you an adjudication recommendation. Again, you need to look at that, make sure you reviewed that when you are selecting someone to serve. And then for TrueScreen, you're going to get the actual rap sheet, if it exists, and then also an adjudication recommendation. The other pre-approved ASPs that are going to expire are, are about when you're prohibited from state law from maintaining results or sharing results. So this happens in a couple cases. A state prohibits your organization from maintaining or sharing results of the state or FBI check. This is allowable until the end of 2019. Basically, there's some documentation requirements for that. This is going to expire at the end of 2019. Your options are, instead of using this pre-approved ASP, is that you will be able to use TrueScreen to get those state checks. This next pre-approved ASP it only impacts a small number of grantees. So it's grantees that already have an approved ASP to use a departmental order or a DO process. A DO process is when you go directly to the FBI to get the checks done. So if you have that ASP to get a DO, and if you have unreadable and you have fingerprints that are rejected because they're unreadable and they're rejected twice, then this pre-approved ASP basically says you don't need to keep going. You just have to document it. This pre-approved ASP, again, is going to expire at the end of 2019. Again, your options for this are using FieldPrint. FieldPrint will run the FBI checks for you. After 2 rejected fingerprint attempts, they will run a name-based FBI check for you. So a name-based check is most likely going to take more than 48 hours. Okay, so after the end of 2019 and starting now, we've added 3 new pre-approved ASPs, and these ASPs will exist beyond 2020. The first one is the use of TrueScreen. So grantees who use TrueScreen have to abide by this pre-approved ASP in order to be compliant. The first thing, which may sound obvious, but you never know, is that you have to set up a TrueScreen account with the CNCS specific agreement code. So I know that there are instances where you as an organization can go outside of the CNCS agreement and go directly to TrueScreen to get a check. You can do that, but you just need to know that that is not the check that we are talking about, and that is not compliant per our standards. CNCS has been working with TrueScreen to make sure that this check is compliant for you if you go through this website and you use the CNCS agreement code. The CNCS agreement code is CNCS agreement, no spaces. There are some resources on the Knowledge Network, which I'll show you afterwards, that kind of breaks down that process. I also just want to point this out because I don't think enough people take advantage of this, but TrueScreen also offers training, and I put this in bold for people because when you start signing up for TrueScreen, we'll do a TrueScreen training today and throughout the next few weeks, but TrueScreen also offers it, and they go much more in depth into their system. I strongly, strongly recommend you to take that training as well. So another aspect of this TrueScreen ASP is that checks have to be completed before the individual starts service or work. So when we talk about what a complete TrueScreen check is, that's basically when the check is adjudicated by the grantee. So that's after you've ordered the check, after the individual completes their application, after you review the results and you have an adjudication or recommendation. That check is only complete after the grantee has reviewed those results and marked in the system that they are cleared for service. That step of adjudication will be time-stamped in the TrueScreen screen. So you will know and we will know when that check is complete. And checks must be complete before an individual in a covered position starts service work or hours. So there are a couple states and territories that TrueScreen does not provide information for. Those are California, Delaware, Louisiana, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Mexico, Virginia. And the territories are American Samoa, Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. So CNCS understands this. We knew going into the process to select a vendor that we were never going to find a vendor out there who is able to access all of the state repositories that we need. And so what we have done with this pre-approved ASP is we are saying that if you need to get a state of service or residence checks from one of these states that's listed on the screen, you do not have to. If you get an NSOPW check from TrueScreen, you get the state, whatever other state that's required from TrueScreen, and then you conduct a fingerprint-based FBI check. So for example, you have an individual who is going to be serving in California and lives in Delaware. Those are both TrueScreen states. Those are both states where TrueScreen doesn't get the information for you. So what you need to get is an NSOPW check from TrueScreen. You can't just go directly to NSOPW. You have to get a check from TrueScreen, and then you need to do a fingerprint-based FBI check. Another example is if you are going to be serving in Virginia, but at time of application you live in New York, Virginia is a state that's exempted because of TrueScreen doesn't have access to them. So you're going to need to get an NSOPW TrueScreen check. You're going to need a New York State residence check, and then you're going to get a fingerprint-based FBI check. There's no need to get a Virginia check. All right. And there's going to be a resource up on the Knowledge Network that I'll show you that kind of makes it a little bit more easier to understand what states need checks and what states do not need checks because of this pre-approved ASP. So another pre-approved ASP is actually live right now. It's called the National Fingerprint File, NFF. The National Fingerprint File is actually an electronic system that's maintained by the FBI that allows the FBI and the states to exchange criminal history information. And so if a state participates in the NFF, the state repository information is already in the FBI report. So there's no need to get a separate state check if that state is participating in the FBI's NFF program. So there are about 20 states that participate in the NFF program. It's Colorado, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Idaho, Iowa, Kansas, Maryland, I'm going to name them all, Minnesota, Missouri, Montana, North Carolina, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Oklahoma, Oregon, Tennessee, West Virginia, Wyoming. So there is no need to get a state of service or state of residence check from states that participate in the NFF program because that information is already included in the FBI check because they participate in the NFF. So, for example, if you are serving in Colorado, but your state of residence is Illinois, you're going to, and this individual has access to covered positions, you're going to need to get an NSOPW, you need to get a fingerprint FBI check, and a Illinois state check. There's no reason to get a Colorado state check because that information is already going to be in your FBI check because Colorado participates in the NFF. How do states participate in the NFF? It's actually a state-specific process. I believe the states have to go through their legislation to basically pass a law to participate in the NFF program. And then there is one more this is a new pre-approved ASP. We added it recently. It's about a disability accommodation. But basically, if there is an individual in a covered position who has recurring access to vulnerable population and they need to get a fingerprint FBI check, if this individual in a covered position physically cannot get the check done because of a disability, such as an absence of limbs, like they do not have literal fingerprints to get a fingerprint check, they do not need to get a fingerprint FBI check. However, they still need to do the NSOPW, and they still need to do an NSOPW NSOPW and a name-based state check on that individual. All right, so those are the changes for ASPs. I know that is a lot, even though we went through it relatively quickly. I know it is a lot to take in. The good news is that there is time. These ASPs will still exist until the end of 2019, and then going forward in 2020, we hope that we are going to give you the tools and resources that you need to ensure that you and your subs have an option to get compliant checks. So that's TrueScreen and FieldPrint. They're out there. They're going to give you compliant checks so that there's really no need for these pre-approved ASPs anymore. We are going to be doing trainings throughout the next few weeks. So again, strongly encourage your subs to attend these trainings. And then we've updated our Knowledge Network page. So I'm going to switch my screen to show you my desktop to show you these new resources. So just bear with me for just a second. Okay, you guys should be able to see my screen. If you can't, type something real quickly in our chat box, and I will pause for a second just so it gets loaded up. Looks like we're okay, so I'm going to just go for it. So this is the same URL as it's always been. It's on the Knowledge Network. It's our same page. We've made quite a bit of changes. So right here, required annual online training. This is the e-course that's required every year. That's still the same. Training. This training site is this tab right here. This is where all of our trainings throughout the next few weeks will be. Subs can come on here and are welcome to click on it and sign up. And then we still have our YouTube series that we created a couple years ago. That's still available for you all. So training is available for you. The ASPs are up and posted. You can find them in two different places. They're going to be in Policies and Procedures and Guidance. Right here, there's a button. And then they're also going to be found here where it says Compliance and Enforcement Tools and Guidance. So that it's the same link. So it will take you to this page, and you'll be able to look at all the pre-approved ASPs. We have updated the resources, so you're going to be seeing all of the pre-approved ASPs. We are also listing when they will be expiring. So right here, expiring at the end of 2019. And then we also changed the FAQs. We brought the FAQs for ASPs down on this document as well. I talked about a resource that will help you kind of manage which states you need to know you need to get checks for if you're going to be using the NFF pre-approved ASP and the TrueScreen pre-approved ASP. That's going to be right here, an NSVHC using FieldPrint and TrueScreen. Before I show that, I just want to let you guys know about the different changes that we created. So if you guys remember, we had that 30-plus page FAQ document. We've broken that up. So now we have 3 different manuals that you can refer to. In the policies and procedures and guidance, you're going to see an NSCHC manual and then FAQs with that. This FAQ document, I think it's like maybe 4 pages. So we've put most of the information in the manual and actually made FAQs, real FAQs. And of course, the last version of the FAQs is still on there. We did the same thing about how you're going to use how you do NSCHC using the NSOPW and state repositories, and then same thing with NSCHC using FieldPrint and TrueScreen. So in this block, NSCHC using TrueScreen and FieldPrint, you're going to find this NFF and ASP table. That's going to show this Excel spreadsheet. We're working with our website team right now to create like a little widget that will look more beautiful than this, but I wanted to get this out there for you to see. But hopefully you'll be seeing something that where you'll just be able to spit in state of service, state of residence, and it'll tell you what checks you need to get. But basically, this is a chart that tells you it for all states. So for example, you got states here on your first row and your first column. It could be your state of residence, state of service. But let's say you are going to be serving in Alabama, but your state of residence at time of application is going to be Alaska. These are the checks that you need to get if you are going to be using TrueScreen, or you're going to be using our vendors, TrueScreen and FieldPrint, and if you're also going to take advantage of the NFF pre-approved ASP. So for example, American Samoa right here, they're on the list of that TrueScreen ASP. So if you're going to be serving in American Samoa, but your state of service at time of application is Alabama, the only checks that you need to get are TrueScreen NSOPW, TrueScreen Alabama check, and a FieldPrint FBI check. And that's for if you have recurring access. And if you don't, if you have no or oh, that looks very intense. If you have no or episodic access, this is what that table is going to look like. And of course, you can adjust the view here. So this looks a little bit more wordy just because, again, you have that choice, right? So you can do either NSOPW in the states or NSOPW in the FBI. And it's just going to depending on which ASPs that you're using that will kind of tell you what checks that you need to get. So I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint. Well, actually, I'll leave it on this just in case people have any questions. So that's basically the training that we have for you today. I knew there were going to be a lot of questions, so we're going to spend the next 30 minutes or so with any questions that you guys may have. Samika, I think, has been monitoring the chat box. Do you have anything for me?
Yes, thank you, Liz. We're going to just start right back at the top. So the first question is from Jacqueline. Her question is, what about FBI checks? Will we have to use FieldPrint now in the case where state laws prohibit maintaining results?
Sure. Great question. So there is no requirement to use FieldPrint right now. It is a resource out there for you. However, if you are using a pre-approved ASP where I believe your state prohibits you from sharing those results, and maybe those are FBI results, obviously there's an option now for you. You can go to TrueScreen and get those FBI checks instead of going to the state. You can still go to the state if you want the actual results and you want to see more of the RAP sheet, but CNCS is going to require to see those results, or we're going to see an adjudication recommendation from TrueScreen.
Excellent, thank you. Next question is from Meredith. When does the NFF pre-approved ASP start? Immediately or not until 2020?
Yep, pre-approved. The NFF pre-approved ASP actually is active now. It has, let me get to it. So it is going to be active for NSCHC conducted on or after September 24, 2018. We updated this ASP a couple months ago now, and there are a couple reasons behind that. Is that we wanted this to be available for the soft launchers, and we wanted it to be available to individuals or to grantees for conducting checks on individuals in covered positions.
Meredith also had a follow-up secondary question. Does the 48-hour turnaround for FieldPrint/TrueScreen include weekends, or is this business or calendar days?
Yeah, so I just want to separate TrueScreen and FieldPrint for you because you're going to go to FieldPrint for your FBI checks only, and then it's a separate account that you're going to have to set up with TrueScreen to get your state and NSOPW checks with. So your FieldPrint FBI checks are going to be a turnaround time of about 2 business days. I mean, I don't know if they're running them during the weekend, but let's be safe and say 2 business days.
Great. The next question is from Kathy. her question, in reality, programs need to have other plans, I'm sorry, that just lost my spot, other plans in place before the 2019-2020 program year, correct? If they start the program year using their ASP, they would expire within months, making them out of compliance.
Yeah, so not technically. Basically, if you ran a check under an existing ASP, that check is compliant if you followed all the requirements that are on that pre-approved ASP. So it'll stay compliant after the end of 2019. The onus is on the grantee or the sub to make sure that they have all the documentation to prove that they followed the pre-approved ASP, that they have a copy of the pre-approved ASP, that they've done everything that they need to. That check will stay compliant. But going forward, January 1, 2020, they cannot use that pre-approved ASP anymore, or any ASP, really.
Okay.
Any ASP that exists now, they will all expire at the end of 2019.
The next question is from Carrie. For states for which TruScreen does not provide information, can you please review the requirements?
Sure. So I'm going right to the TruScreen ASP. So these are the requirements that grantees have to abide by. The first thing is they have to set up an account with TruScreen through this website with the CNCS specific code. You cannot go to TruScreen and use a different agreement code. You can't go and have a private contract with TruScreen. You actually are welcome to do that. I do not know if that check will be compliant. I can tell you the checks that we've worked with TruScreen through this agreement code are compliant. So you have to set up an account with the CNCS specific agreement code, and then the checks must be completed before the start of service work or hours, and completion means the check is adjudicated by the grantee. So it's not you've seen the adjudication recommendation from TruScreen. It means that you've gone into the system, you reviewed the results, there is like a little drop-down box that I'll show during the training later today, and you've cleared them, you've selected them to be cleared for clearance. So after you've done that, that step is going to be time-stamped and time-marked. That is when the check is going to be completed, and that is when individuals can start service work or hours. And then there are these states and territories that TruScreen does not provide information for. You do not have to get checks from those states. If you get an NSOPW TruScreen check, you get the required state checks that are available from TruScreen. So example might be the state of service or residence where TruScreen can access a state. And then you need to do that fingerprint-based FBI check.
Thank you. Our next question is from Robin. If programs are already using FieldPrint, can they continue, or does something need to change in their account to show CNCS agreement?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I know TruScreen is actually the way that some states, it's the way that some of you guys get access to state repositories. I think specifically like Wisconsin and New Mexico, TruScreen is how you get a state repository check. And basically, you need to get a FieldPrint, I'm sorry, I said TruScreen, but I meant FieldPrint. You need to get a FieldPrint check through the CNCS contract as well. And that's basically going to the CNCS FieldPrint website, which I believe is cncsfieldprint.com or fieldprintcncs.com. Actually, let me just pull it up for you guys so I know. Yeah, so you need to get an agreement through the CNCS agreement. You need to get a FieldPrint contract through the CNCS agreement, and that's going to be through this website. This is a website specifically for CNCS, and you are going to set up an account through this website. So if you do not know if your FieldPrint account is through the CNCS account, just contact your FieldPrint account manager, ask them, am I under the CNCS account? If you are not, I strongly suggest you go through the CNCS account. One real positive reason is that we actually have negotiated a cheaper FBI check for you guys, so it's actually $27.50 per FBI check, and I know if you use FieldPrint directly outside of the CNCS account, it could be more than double that.
Great, thank you. We have another question from Jacqueline. Because we are not allowed to share results in Texas, we are by default required to run FBI checks through FieldPrint. Our grantees will be running 2 FBI checks, one through FieldPrint and one through our state repository. Since they'll need a full rap sheet to clear them to serve in service sites, especially schools, that brings the cost of NSCHC to over $100 per member. Will there be any issue with grantees including double the $54 per member required amount in their budget?
I believe NSCHC is an allowable grant cost.
Excellent. Our next question comes from Ted. Field print guidance provided to the applicant says that they must be given 45 days to inform the selecting organization about their intent to challenge the factual accuracy of the results. Is the 45 days a requirement? And if yes, does the selecting organization have to hold the slot until the challenge is resolved?
So it is a requirement through the regulations that individuals have the opportunity to challenge the factual accuracy of any results. And so this is going to happen when usually happens when you deny someone a spot to service because of something on their record. With field print, you're going to get two different types of recommendation. One will be like a green pass, and the other one is going to be like kind of a review. And that basically means a couple different things. One, it could mean that the individual has been convicted of murder or sex offense that requires registration, or they are on a sex offender registry. Or it could mean that field print doesn't have enough information to conclusively say that this person has not been convicted. So there might be an arrest on their record that there is no conviction information. So you as a grantee, you have to provide that individual the opportunity to challenge the factual accuracy. That can take some time, especially because that's probably going to mean CNCS has actually kind of like written out a couple steps of how you can do this. So you have to allow the individual in a covered position the opportunity to challenge the factual accuracy. You have to give them a reasonable amount of time to do that as well. So we have given you guidance that you should give 45 days. In terms of your other question about holding the slot for the individual, I mean, I believe it would be up to you when you're managing your program. But again, if that individual comes back to you and they are able to show you that, they're able to successfully challenge the factual accuracy of the information, that they've never been convicted of murder or sex offense, I mean, then it goes back to you as an organization thinking about what is suitability. Do you have those suitability standards? For us at CNCS, they are now eligible to serve if they haven't been convicted of murder or a sex offense, or they're on a sex offender registry.
Thank you. We have a follow-up question from Carrie. Just confirming, for a California program with a California applicant, you would only need a TrueScreen NSOPW and FieldPrint FBI to be compliant, no state check at all?
Yeah, so let's go back to this TrueScreen pre-approved to ASP. California is one of those states that TrueScreen cannot provide information for. So in order to be compliant with CNCS compliance standards and regulatory standards, what you need to get if their state of service and state of residence is California and they have access to, vulnerable populations. And actually, regardless of access to vulnerable populations, they're going to need an NSOPW TrueScreen check and a fingerprint-based FBI check. That's it. And then so I'm going to pull this up. This is, again, that table that looks kind of intense, but California is highlighted there. So you're going to see, yep, state of residence and state of service. Or California, the only check you're going to need are TrueScreen NSOPW. And this table is for if you're going to use the vendor, so it's going to be, if I'm saying FieldPrint FBI check.
Thank you. We have another question from Jacqueline. This question scenario is, would this be compliant for CNCS? With Texas being one of the states where we are not able to share results, if we are able to work with our state repository to issue pass-fail results for grantees based on CNCS requirements that could be maintained in files in addition to a full rap sheet, which would not be maintained in the files, would that be compliant?
So are you trying to ask me if you can use a clearance letter? Is that?
Jacqueline is currently typing.
Okay.
The same level of information as FieldPrint.
So if you're going, I'm sorry, Tamika, do you mind reading that out to me again just so I understand?
Sure. So with our state repository to issue pass-fail results for grantees based on CNCS requirements that could be maintained in files in addition to the full rap sheet, which would not be maintained in files, would that be compliant for CNCS?
Okay, so the use of TrueScreen and FieldPrint are not required, but they're strongly encouraged. So if you can't go to TrueScreen and FieldPrint, you are allowed to get NSCHC through the standard channels, which are going directly to the NSOPW or going directly to your state repository. So your state repository is going to provide you most likely a rap sheet of the state results, state results, so we'll see that. If you can't provide the results of that, then you're going to have to go to TrueScreen so we can see that it's been, so that indeed the person is eligible to serve. Okay, sorry, I just saw that Jacqueline is going to send me an email, so I understand that correctly. But basically, there are two options for you guys to use. You can still get NSCHC done through the NSOPW and your state repositories, or you can use TrueScreen and FieldPrint. FieldPrint to get your FBI, TrueScreen for your NSOPW and state.
Thank you.
Hold on, folks. This is Lori. I just wanted to point us back to the ASP number 5, where we're talking about the maintaining clearance letters. I just want us to be mindful that if you have the results and we're able to review the results and get access to those results, you're good after December 31st, 2019. But effective December 31st, 2019, if you only have a clearance letter and you aren't able to access the results or share access to those results, the ASP is being eliminated and will go away. So we look forward to answering individual questions on this because I think that might be the best way, but I think what we're talking about is this ASP number 5.
Oh, any questions you guys can send me. You're welcome to send me any questions if you can just email me at chc@cns.gov. That's CHC, criminal history checks at cns.gov.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Meredith. If an FBI rap sheet is needed to accurately determine if a member is eligible per their program results, how much does a rap sheet request cost? I've read up to $50. Do you have any information about that?
Yeah, so for FieldPrint, if you use FieldPrint, we've already negotiated with FieldPrint about the adjudication criteria. So they have a list of us that kind of lists murder and sex offenses that require registration. So when you get a check from FieldPrint, you can rest assured that they've passed CNCS eligibility criteria. If you have additional criteria on your program and you need to have the actual rap sheet, there are different options available to you. You can go directly to the FBI. I'm not sure how much that costs, or you can go to another vendor to get the actual results. I have heard if you use FieldPrint outside of our CNCS contract, it can be like $65.
Meredith has a follow-up question. With Ohio being an NFF state, does that mean the implications of only needing an FBI because the state results are shared only applies if the subgrantee is using FieldPrint or any vendor works for the NFF rule?
So again, there's no requirement to use FieldPrint or TrueScreen, but that NFF, participating in the NFF program applies to any FBI check that you get. So if you go directly to the FBI, but just so you know, if you go directly to the FBI, that means you're employing the departmental order process, which you need an ASP for. But if you get an FBI check, excuse me, from another place, it is going to have that same information. The NFF is maintained by the FBI, so it's going to apply to all FBI checks.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Stephanie. Confirming if ASPs will still be considered for programs that have member placement at sites that are required to undergo mandated criminal background checks through a state agency, if those alternative checks are substantially equivalent or better.
You are welcome to submit ASP requests to CNCS, and CNCS will evaluate those on an individual basis.
Our next question is from Judy. Please confirm, the use of TrueScreen and FieldPrint is not required but encouraged.
Yes, it is strongly encouraged.
At At this time, there are no further questions. If you have any additional questions, please enter them in the chat box. Oh, we have another question. This question is from Ted. Does the detailed ineligibility criteria listed on page 20, section A of the field print guidance need to be presented verbatim to all individuals applying for service or work, or is this the current most abbreviated list from CNCS still appropriate?
You are welcome to share that with individuals, but I think our ineligibility criteria are pretty clear. So if it's murder specific to 18 U.S. Code 111, I believe, or if they're listed on a sex offender registry, or if they're required to be listed on a sex offender registry, that means that deems them ineligible. So those, we have provided field print, with a list of those list of crimes that captures that type of those types of convictions, but I think you're welcome to share it with them, but they should also just know that those are our eligibility standards.
Thank you. We are currently showing no questions, but we have a few individuals typing. Our next question comes from Robin. Might not be the right question for this call topic, but how will TrueScreen determine state of residence check? Does member tell, program request it, et cetera?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're going to cover that in our TrueScreen session that's going to be later today and throughout the next few weeks. But just quickly to let you know is that the ordering organization, so whether that's you or your sub, is going to request the state of residence check.
Thank you. If there are any additional questions, please feel free to enter them in the chat box at this time. I am currently, I spoke too soon. We have somebody typing. Oh, thank you, Kristen. Apparently there is a question from Meredith, which I missed. Meredith asked, could you review the items field print highlights on their adjudicated results report besides murder and sex offense? If something else comes up on their rap sheet, how would the program know?
Yep, so I'm on, oh wait, you said TrueScreen, not field print, right? Or was your?
Field print.
Oh, field print, okay.
So,
this is down to what is a not cleared recommendation mean. So let's see if I can make this bigger. There we go. All right, so this is an FAQ that's available to everybody. It hasn't changed since we started this contract. This is on the fieldprintcncs.com page. So basically, these are the situations that will lead to a not cleared recommendation result. So if you get a no or a not cleared recommendation from FieldPrint, it's going to fall into one of these categories. If you would like to know what that category is, you're going to have to get an FBI check on your own, or the individual is going to have to request it on their own for you to see the actual rap sheet. What you're able to do if the individual has a not cleared recommendation is that the individual can come back to you and provide documentation showing that they've never been convicted of that crime, and you maintain that documentation and they are eligible to serve.
Thank you. Again, if there are any additional questions, please enter them in the chat box at this time. I'm currently not seeing any more questions.
All right, great. We can hang around here for a couple more minutes to see if we have any, if any questions are percolating, and people will get them into the chat box. I just want to thank you guys for your participation and all your really great questions. I know that we're changing the way, we are fundamentally changing the way that criminal history checks are going forward, and we really hope that these tools we provide you and these new policies will make this better. So I'll hope to see you guys later today. We've got 2 more trainings, one on the exemption period, one on a TrueScreen demo. Those, again, are just for commissions. And again, encourage your subs to participate in the, I think we have like 16, 17 more trainings throughout the next few weeks.
Thank you, Liz. We have another question from Ted. What is the cost for a field print cancellation in less than 24 hours?
Yeah, that's covered in our FAQs here. Let me see. All right. There is a rescheduling fee of $17.50.
Excellent. Thank you. We have a few individuals typing in. See if there's any more questions. Meredith says she will follow up with you on another question offline. Okay. I'm not showing any further questions. Also would like to reiterate with Liz, our next webinar is at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's the exemption period for commissions webinar. And then our third webinar for the day is at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that's the TrueScreen onboarding for commissions.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.